clerk please take the roll?
Thank you, Mayor Herbig. Deputy Mayor O'Kane?
Present.
Mayor Herbig?
Here.
Councilmember File?
Here.
Councilmember Srebnick? You're muted. Councilmember Srebnick?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry.
Wonderful. Councilmember Marshall?
Present.
Councilmember Kugler?
Here.
Councilmember Baker?
Here.
All present.
And because my video is on the phone, I'm going to be using my stored image
All right.
for bandwidth.
Next on the agenda is the executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110(1)(I). The city council will now enter into executive session to discover pending or potential litigation. The session is set to conclude at 7 p.m. I will see you all over there.
Garrett and Sam, I see you're with us. The council is going to recess to executive session for about 30 minutes. So we'll catch you back around 7 o'clock. Welcome back, Mayor Herbig, Councilmember Shrubnik.
Give Councilmember File just a little bit more time. Okay, we are going to adjourn out of the special meeting and call the regular meeting to order. Next on the agenda is the flag salute. If you'd please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda, unless there is any, that's what I'm looking for. Unless anybody objects, the agenda will be approved. Seeing no objection, the agenda stands approved. Next up is public comments. We welcome our community members to the council's meeting. In this forum, the council does not engage in dialogue with the public. The primary role of the council is to listen. Please use the raise hand feature now if you wish to speak. Guests must address comments to the mayor and city council. The clerk will acknowledge your request and call your name when it is your turn. Your time will start when we confirm that we can hear you. Please state your name and city of residence for the record and keep your comments to the allotted time. We will not split your time with others or reset your time except by express approval of the presiding officer. Screen sharing is not allowed. You can submit materials to the council or clerk in advance. Please do not comment about pending development projects on which the council will make future decisions, as those are quasi-judicial matters and council members must limit their communications about such matters. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you for taking the time to express your comments. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Herbig. We do have a group of guests with us. We'd like to take them in this order. Carl Michaelman, followed by Janet, followed by Patrick O'Brien and David Morton. Mr. Michaelman?
Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Carl Michaelman, Kenmore, Washington. So this evening, you guys are talking about health insurance benefits, and I have a lot of concern about that. One council member was the one that decided to bring it up, which totally confuses me because she was looking at other cities, how their benefits are, which kind of gets me because it should not have anything to do with the benefits that we're doing. With this being said, if you look at the numbers, all of you have health insurance, all of you, okay? It's a volunteer position. And for you to go ahead and consider having a conversation about taking this on at $2,000 a month per person, it takes 4 people, if I read this correctly, before it was 5, but it takes 4 people to go ahead and pass this through. Now, what I don't understand, if everybody has health insurance, why are we asking for more? My insertion is so the families can have the benefit as well. With that being said, I look at the person who started this thing, Karina File, who is already on disability from Social Security and has Medicaid for health insurance. So she even still has health insurance, but at the same time, you guys are talking about this. Melanie O'Kane, Nigel, you all work for municipalities and you all have good health benefits. To go ahead and look at the numbers, 4 of you, which would be very interesting who would take this on, I would have a big concern because your benefits are very well doing right now. The people are getting frustrated because all we're doing is getting taxed, taxed, taxed. Last November, you gave 2% COLA. You didn't pass the vote for the property tax at that time, but it was a lot more money with the 2%. You did a 6% COLA again. And to pay for that 6%, you went ahead and did a 1% property tax a few months ago. Then you guys are even talking about taxing cable. There's a franchise fee. And what's happening is, I hope you're not sleeping, Nigel. I just hope you're not. There you go. Okay. So the other thing is that what's happening is you're taxing everybody. We cannot afford a total, if only 4 people do it, $96,000. Now, to be very clear on this, and I'm directing this to you, Nigel, I have a lot of passion for this city. And for some reason that they quote a couple people being angry to govern this city, what's happening is, bottom line is, we're not angry. We're passionate. And if we don't agree with what you say, for some reason, you call that angry. So I beg the city council to do not.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michaelman.
Thank you.
Janet?
I have no idea. Am I on?
You are. We see you and hear you. Go ahead.
Oh dear. I have no idea. I'm doing my iPad.
Go ahead.
So my name is Janet Hayes and I'm a resident of Kenmore. And I have been, of course, following the information and the permit that has been applied for by Cadman to Puget Sound Clean Air Agency, and going over it and getting my comments ready. And I'm realizing how much I would like to know how the city feels about it. I'd like to have a meeting before the public hearing meeting, just to know that the fact that we got Cascadia to look at it for us and give their opinions and be a part of it. And we provided them with the information to make their decisions. I was waiting in December at one of the council meetings, and Cascadia had said they wouldn't probably make a mistake. Not really. They probably wouldn't have any information on how they felt about it until they saw the permit. The permit has been prepared in draft form, and there was another person named Karen Greenacre that the city had hired, and she felt the same way. And now we, the citizens that were a part of that whole process, would like to be included somehow. So we understand from the city's perspective and from the Karen Greenacre's perspective, what we should comment on to make sure our comments are within limits or we're not missing something. So that would be very much appreciated. And that's it for tonight. Thank you. Oh, wait, I would like to ask, why is there a determination of non-significance? I'm always checking and researching in case it is significant. To me, it's on Lake Washington, for one thing. Might be a private birthing channel, might be privately owned, by the owners of the property around it, but that area has never been tested. And as we've found out through this permit that they've applied to, that asphalt plant is never tested. They've never had to reach any standards. We'd like testing done in the private berthing channel.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much. Patrick O'Brien.
Hi, I'd like to say good job, Carl Michaelman. You're right on target with those questions on the health benefits that the council is trying to vote to themselves. I think that's inherently wrong. And Janet, that's actually a great statement, Janet. They're saying it's insignificant, the asphalt plant. It's the most significant thing the city council is not working towards. You've had over 1,000 complaints. That's a nuisance. You hired a law firm, Cascade Law Group, for $100,000, and they're acting as a cover and an excuse for the city manager not to enforce any sort of zoning restrictions or even going into the plant and seeing what's in all the tanks. It's an absolute travesty, and it's perpetuating itself, and it always will through Puget Sound Clean Air, because that is a shill organization. It's not real. It's only there to protect that industry. It's paid for by that industry, and it's up to you guys. If we're going to have you guys sitting in those council seats, you have to protect our health. And the only way to do that is to go after them and deny this latest permit. So cancel Cascade Law Group. We've heard them talk. We know they're on the asphalt plant side. Let's be done with them. That's crazy, crazy money. We're going to lose the Murphy auction yard. Where is the replacement taxes going to come from? Can we get a card room back at the bowling alley? And as you know, I've mentioned this several times, on Northeast 181st Street, there was a notice to have a tent city. They said they contacted the residents within 1,000 feet. They absolutely did not. In my research, I can show you they did not. They falsified the documents. They had all the heads of the departments sign off on it. And we don't know if there's going to be any vetting and responsible, no vetting of anybody that's going to stay there. And we want to see $1 million bond taken out by the church in case any of our property or persons are hurt here. And then where's all this money for land acquisitions coming? 3.2 million for the Ben Holt. I mean, you're spending money like sailors. So where's this money coming from other than the backs of the taxpayers? You really got to slow down. We're supposedly in financial hard times, and you spend money like sailors. So please stop.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Mr. Morton.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, council members. I'm David Morton. I live near Redmond. If you've been downwind of the Cadman asphalt plant in Kenmore and breathed the fumes when they mix cut back asphalt with aggregate to make asphalt paving mix, you might ask, doesn't this place have to comply with any restrictions? Since its original construction in the 1960s, the plant has had very few restrictions and conditions regarding its operation. The plant got its first permission to construct a bag house in April 1973, prior to the promulgation date in June 1973 of a rule called New Source Performance Standards. As a result, the rule has not applied to the facility. The Kenmore asphalt plant has never been subject to this rule and has been grandfathered to April 1973's absence of standards until now. PSCAA's current draft order of approval does 5 important things. First, it ungrandfathers the asphalt plant, meaning the plant will be subject to the new source performance standards for asphalt concrete plants upon issuance of the order. Over the years, numerous changes and replacements were made to the facility, which triggered the reconstruction provisions of the new source performance standards. On October 30, 2020, CADMAN, quote, decided to accept applicability of new source performance standards requirements to the Kenmore plant, end quote. With the issuance of the proposed order of approval, the plant must comply with the performance standards that new plants must comply with, and will no longer be grandfathered to the April 1973's absence of standards. Second, it requires testing for VOCs, as well as particulate matter, opacity, carbon monoxide, and nitrogen oxides. I suggest that VOC testing be done more frequently and done while the asphalt binder is being added to the mixer. Third, it prohibits the use of cutback asphalt to make hot mix asphalt. This alone can reduce the plant's emissions of asphalt fumes by about 80%. I suggest an occasional surprise testing of the binder stored in the asphalt cement tanks to keep them honest. Fourth, it requires odor response and monitoring. Fifth, it supersedes and cancels all previous orders of approval. The proposed order of approval will benefit the city of Kenmore and anyone downwind of the asphalt plant. Send in your comments to PSCAA and attend the Zoom public hearing on April 18th. Please support the order so it can be issued as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. We now have Elizabeth Mooney, followed by John Hendrickson and Victoria Grayland. Ms. Mooney, are you with us?
Yeah, you can hear me, right?
And see you. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Elizabeth Mooney. I'm a resident of Kenmore, and I'm president of a nonprofit, PERC, People for Environmentally Responsible Kenmore. It had a meeting yesterday, and I want to thank David Morton for coming to speak at that meeting to help us as volunteers educate the community. PERC helped with the formation of the Kenmore Clean Air Coalition. So I want to go back to say that I fully support Janet Hayes, Patrick O'Brien, and David Morton's comments, but I want to get straight to my point because this is our chance. Please, council, direct staff tonight as soon as possible to let us speak directly with the Cascadia, Dennis McLaren, and the TRC expert, Karen Greenacre, who said on December 20th, 2021, in your council meeting, Dennis McLaren from Cascadia said that she is the expert on the specifics of the exact steps regarding the draft permit that Puget Sound Clean Air Agency issued and would issue. She could not even get on the Zoom call that night sufficiently. We did not get an update in 2021. It wasn't her fault. I'm not saying that. But right now, we have a time ticking before these comments are due. And it is a lot of pressure after all these years of breathing in emissions from a grandfathered asphalt plant in Kenmore that is not only ruining potentially people's health, but it is also ruining what we are known for on the north end of Lake Washington. So when COVID hit, we the citizens approached the city and Puget Sound Clean Air Agency regarding stopping the emissions, since there was evidence that COVID was causing more risk to people breathing air pollution. That led eventually, thank you, council, to directing staff to hire Cascadia, Karen Greenacre of TRC, to the tune of the $100,000. Citizens like Janet Hayes and Kate Donaldson and Richard and Ruth Honor and Patrick O'Brien breathed those emissions, and they just started again a week ago, which is really discouraging. We expected an update from Cascadia. We didn't get it, and we want and believe that the only thing that is fair is that for us to hear what Cascadia and TRCs think of that draft permit. There's a gap in the knowledge that has to do with the health, that whether or not this draft permit, which is a retroactive permit, it doesn't even address health issues. It's for the city. We think it's only fair that we get to find out as soon as possible when we can have a meeting with Cascadia and Karen Greenacre, because we do not know if this draft permit adequately causes protection of public health or environmental health.
Thank you, Ms. Mooney. Mr. Hendrickson, you're muted.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you and see you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, good evening, council members. I ran into Carl Michelman a couple of weeks ago just by chance out by my house, and he played a video for me where he was speaking against the issue of council getting health insurance. And he played a recording from Nigel Herbig, which was really demeaning and degrading towards Carl Michelman. And blowing him off as only one voice, someone that should be discounted. And I think it really shows the extent to which the council, I believe, and a lot of people believe, has lost its way. We put our money together here, and you are supposed to provide us public safety services on three main issues. One is land use. Help us with our building to make sure they're safe. Police and roads. All public safety issues. You guys have hijacked the council under Nigel's leadership, which isn't much different than Dave as far as ethics goes. Two sides of the same coin. But you're social activists, and you don't care about public safety. And you can see it all over this region. Criminals run free. The criminals are the victims, and the victims are the criminals. People, they get arrested, they get turned right out. The jail doesn't take them, prosecutors don't prosecute, and you guys are part of that. So I'm very disappointed to see any citizen, especially like Carl Michelman, who's a good, honest person and has many people in town that would agree with him if they knew the facts, to be treated this way. Disgraceful. So I would suggest that you should really think about checking yourselves in terms of self-indulgence, and ask yourselves, get some kind of a measurement, and ask yourselves, at what point is it bad? At what point does it cross into the obscene in self-indulgence? Okay. So the other thing is I talked to Julie Murphy at Murphy's Auction today. I mentioned this to Rob Carlinzi, and I asked her if she would sign a waiver and let us know publicly how much they pay to Kenmore in sales tax. And she said, well, I already know, because when we were trying to move into Monroe, they checked it and they were paying, she thinks they're paying $500,000 a year to Kenmore. So we're losing $500,000 a year. And the council members that and other people I've talked to don't even have a clue. And yet you want to spend $100,000 plus to give yourselves health insurance. Benjamin Franklin ideally said we should be serving as council members for free. I offered when I served, I wanted to serve for free if everybody else would. I couldn't even get a second.
Mr. Hendrickson, I'm sorry, I was delayed in starting the timer, so your time is up.
No, it isn't. I got 14 seconds.
I was delayed in starting the timer by 14 seconds.
So you're going to cut me off just like that?
Let him go 14 seconds. That's
okay.
That's the time he thought he had.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Benjamin Franklin started post office. He started fire department. He started a library, all volunteers. You guys should be volunteers, not trying to get rich. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrickson. Victoria Grayland. You're muted.
Sorry, thanks. I'm just so happy to be here tonight with all these other great comments. I really support Elizabeth and Janet Hayes for asking for another meeting with Cascadia. It makes perfect sense to me. Although I want to congratulate the citizens of Kenmore who went to the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency Board of Directors month after month after month, asking for testing, asking for this plant to be cleaned up, asking for the laws to be enforced. It's really quite sad that our agencies aren't enforcing the great laws that we passed in the 1970s. I do remember them. So I think it would be a great idea to meet with Cascadia. And I also want to thank David Morton for his great generosity in helping us here in Kenmore, even though he doesn't live here. And congratulations on passing the tree ordinance finally after 3 years of citizen pressure. I did ask for a health survey from King County, Elizabeth, so that's been addressed. And our mayor said that our ex-mayor, excuse me, our former mayor, the former guy, said that he was taking care of it. And I also want to mention Jay Inslee, how disappointing it is to me. He's sending out his fundraising letters now. And I remember when the city council stepped up and asked him to shut down the asphalt plant during hazardous air days. And he refused. He didn't even listen to us. We got no response from him. The worst I think a public elected can do is not respond to you. And I appreciate the response that our city council gives us. And thank you and good night.
Thank you, Ms. Grayland. Good night to you. Mayor Herbig, I don't see any additional hands raised. You're muted.
Is there anybody else wishing to be heard? Okay. Seeing no hands flying up, we will move on to the consent agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The consent agenda is adopted unanimously. Next up, business agenda. City Council health insurance benefits presented by policy analyst Garrett Oppenheim. Mr. Oppenheim?
He's on his way.
Thank you.
Can you guys all see me?
We can
Just
see
wanna make
you.
sure. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Let me get the presentation open here. Go. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and honorable members of the City Council. It's my pleasure to come before you tonight to talk about health insurance benefits for elected officials. As background, as you know, a salary commission was convened in 2021 to set the salaries for the next 5 years for the City Council. As part of its determination, the Salary Commission did not consider medical, dental, and vision benefits for council members. The reason for this was a persuasive Attorney General opinion that reasoned that the standard definition of the word salary does not include health benefits, such that they should not be in the purview of the Salary Commission. Additionally, the state legislature adopted RCW 41.04.190, which provides that health coverage insurance is not additional compensation. Under the statute, health coverage may be authorized by a city's principal supervising official or governing body, i.e. the City Council. As such, it is within the jurisdiction of the Kenmore City Council to provide for medical, dental, and vision benefits for its members if it so chooses. In terms of enrollment, if the council decides to provide for health benefits for its members, you would enroll with the initial offering or within 30 days of election in the manner of a newly hired employee. Those who fail to enroll upon the initial offering would have the option to enroll during open enrollment each year with coverage effective January the 1st. The rates differ based on the plans that are available, but they do not change based on the number of council members who elect to get coverage, as long as the minimum number are enrolled, a factor I will get to later in the presentation. The city may elect to pay between 0 and 100% of the medical coverage premium, but must pay at least 75% of dental and visual coverage premiums. Kenmore is eligible for Wells City discounted rates on the Kaiser Permanente and Blue Shield plans through the Employee Benefit Trust, and that would not change if benefits were also provided to the City Council. As such, those are the rates reflected in the tables below. Looking to the practices in the region and around the state, we see that of the cities who neighbor Kenmore, Bothell, Briar, Kirkland, Lake Forest Park, Shoreline, and Woodinville, none currently provide medical, dental, or visional insurance benefits to their city council members. Kirkland and Shoreline do offer the option, but they don't currently meet the minimum level of participation, and as such, none of their members are eligible. Kirkland does provide a $300 allowance to its city council members in lieu of medical, dental, and vision benefits. If we broaden the scope of the survey to all of the council manager cities in the state that were used in the Salary Commission as comparable to Kenmore for purposes of determining elected official salaries, we see that of those 28 cities, only 7 provide such benefits to their city council members, and of those, most are quite limited. So you can see those in this chart here. The Association of Washington Cities Employee Benefit Trust offers 8 medical plans. 4 of those are from Regents Blue Shield and 4 from Kaiser Permanente. 10 dental plans, 8 of which are from Delta Dental and 2 from Willamette Dental, and 4 vision plans, all of them through Vision Service Plan. Of these, 5 of the medical insurance plans, 2 of the dental plans, and 1 vision plan are currently available to City of Kenmore employees. The City Council may make available to its members any of the AWC plans, whether they are currently available to City of Kenmore employees or not. So here we see the 5 medical plans that are available to City of Kenmore employees. As I mentioned before, there are 3 other plans, but in hopes of saving space, I only put the 5 that are available to City of Kenmore employees here. All of the plans that are available are detailed in the information that you've received. You can see that among these plans, the deductibles range from $250 per person and $450 per family to $1,500 per person and $3,000 per family. The out-of-pocket maximums range for $2,000 per person and $4,000 per family in the Regents Accountable Health Network plan to $5,000 per person and $10,000 per family in the Regents High Deductible plan. Prescription benefits and copays likewise vary by plan. And here you can see the details of the 2 dental plans currently available to employees. And on this page, you can see the single vision plan that's available to City of Kenmore employees. As with the medical plans, the details of all the other plans are provided in the materials that the council has. This chart shows the monthly premiums for each of the plans currently available to Kenmore employees. If the council decides to provide these benefits to its members, the city may pay anywhere from 0 to 100% of the monthly premium for medical insurance, but the city must pay at least 75% for dental and vision. Turning to eligibility requirements, there are minimum participation requirements for all the plans detailed above. In order for any council members to receive medical coverage, no fewer than 50% of the council members must participate, meaning 4 of the 7 members of the city council must enroll in medical coverage for any of them to be eligible. Dental and vision coverage requires 75% of the council members to participate in order for the city to offer the coverage to any members. For 7-member council, this means at least 4 council members must participate in the medical plans, and at least 6 must participate in the dental or vision for any to be eligible. Assuming the minimum of 4 council members enroll in the medical plans, there's no minimum enrollment in individual plans. For instance, if 3 members elected to enroll in a Kaiser plan and 1 in a Regents Blue Shield plan, that would suffice to maintain eligibility as 4 members would be participating. There's no minimum enrollment period, but it's important to know that if participation drops below the eligibility threshold, as I mentioned before, 50% for medical and 75% for dental and vision, then all council members become ineligible for coverage on the first day of the month following noncompliance, and the ensuing loss of eligibility is not considered a COBRA qualifying event. If the City Council is interested in pursuing health insurance benefits further, the next step would be to review in more detail the available plans and then decide how much of the monthly premiums would be paid by the city and how much by participating council members. Once the council chooses a plan or plans and determines the monthly payment, the following step would be to direct staff to prepare a resolution authorizing health insurance benefits to City Council members. Thank you. If there are any questions, I will do my best to answer those now.
Could we take down the presentation, please?
Of course.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Councilmember Kugler.
I have 2 questions. One is, do we offer benefits? Does the city currently offer benefits to part-time employees? And also, I'm wondering, how do cities handle, like cities like Kirkland or Shoreline that say they offer it, but only if they meet the minimum threshold? Are you familiar with how they handle that? Like, do they offer it every year and see how many people qualify or are interested, but then don't move forward if they don't have the minimum?
As to the first question, I don't know whether part-time employees, looks like Rob wants to handle that one.
Yeah, the city does offer health insurance to part-time employees if they're regular employees and if they're working a minimum of 20 hours a week. But then the benefits are prorated. So the city would provide half the dollar amount coverage for a 20-hour employee versus a 40-hour a week employee.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes, I appreciate the fact that we're also talking about employees, but really the issue at heart is council members getting health insurance. This is supposed to be a volunteer position, and I am totally against council members getting health insurance, and I truly don't think we should about it.
Councilmember File and then Councilmember Kugler.
Thank you. So I understand, as you have in your presentation, 7 currently are participating in policy plans, but truly 11 cities do participate in supporting insurance, healthcare insurance for their councils of 21 in council manager, council types of formats. So that being said, I see that there's a little bit of a difference with what Kirkland does with their benefit. If council members don't choose to take it, they get a stipend instead. And that's just the way they roll that out. Now, some people would say, and not many people, at least in government, say this, but some people say it, and it is an excuse to say, oh, council members are volunteer positions, but truly they are not. We fill out, we run for government, the people elect us, and when we are sworn into office, we also fill out a W-2 and pay taxes, just like any other job, serving the people. That being said, I believe healthcare is a human basic right. And if we can adopt benefits that can help reduce disparities in our own council format and increase greater diversity and participation, I'm for supporting that kind of a pathway. Truly, it's a sad thing that we have to have this kind of a conversation, but as healthcare should be something that everybody has access to, but that is not quite the case, not yet. And hopefully we can change that one day, working together as a greater whole. But that being said, I really appreciate both comments brought by I think one of our residents and an outside community member. We haven't received many emails on the topic or issue. And I look forward to hearing what others have to say.
Councilmember Kugler.
I didn't get a response to my second question. I was hoping to go back to that about the process.
I'm sorry about that, Councilmember Kugler. I didn't pursue that, but my understanding was that they do each year at the enrollment period ask the city council members whether they want to participate that year or not. And if they don't get sufficient participation, then they just don't, it's not available to them that year.
Any other questions? I had one question, and I'll start off by saying I don't think I'm in favor of this, of us giving ourselves healthcare, but there was one question that I was curious if there was an answer to. Why would the AWC healthcare plans treat council set different than part-time employees? I'm just curious why there's that or if you know, why there's that requirement for half of the council. Why aren't council members just treated as another employee in the employee pool?
I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay, I was just
They
curious.
didn't explain that one to me.
It's fine. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any questions or comments.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor
Councilmember
O'Kane.
O'Kane.
Yeah.
I have a comment, and it's, let me have a question that I think it's just a comment. I have to agree with Councilmember Fowl that it is unfortunate that and I think our Mayor Herbrug, that we even have to address this question. Unfortunately, as I look at what's proposed, how do I say this? I just think it's a higher level issue than at the city, and looking at the benefits offered, I don't think they're that affordable necessarily, depending on how we vote if we were to. I would also agree with Mayor Herbig. What's the difference between a part-time employee? Why is it a separate pool for the council? I think that's a very interesting question. I see both sides of how it could land, but I think it's an important issue that we brought up, that we've explored. The part that is challenging is, that you have to have a certain number of people be able to even utilize the benefit too. So anyway, I just want to say I'm an absolute supporter for healthcare for all. I think it's a travesty that we don't have it in our nation. It shouldn't even be, it should be a federal thing, in my opinion, but at least state level. But I don't think that, I would love to be supporting this, but I think it's just part of the machine. And so anyway, I understand where this comes from. I do think healthcare is a right. I just think there are better options for healthcare than what we're offering here for our council members. So thank you.
Councilmember Marshall.
I greatly respect Councilmember Fowle's principles that she's cited on it, and it's also intriguing to think of the comparisons. Okay, we're not Congress people. I guess we're not state legislators. I think obviously both the Congress has the healthcare, and I believe the state legislatures do too. But those are substantially, in all likelihood, more demanding and time-consuming jobs. I do take to heart and balance the respect for thinking about innovation in healthcare, and especially barriers to people who can hold the positions that we're sitting in. I do respect those. I think for me, I've got to balance it against the idea of fiscal responsibility and some definite sense of the public thinking, and substantially rightfully so, that, well, if the council's asking us to be fiscally responsible, or if they're going to be fiscally responsible, they need to do it with themselves. And it's almost to the point, it's not quite austerity, certainly, but is this something that we have that we can spare the city that expense? I'd like to be looking over, in the future, a lot of different contracts and a lot of different expenses that the city in general is looking at. But I think to do that, we've got to show some skin in the game ourselves for it, and some commitment to the principle on that. That's how I feel that I would have my commitment to it. Thanks.
Councilmember Shrubnik.
Yeah, and I too just want to say, I'm definitely a supporter of healthcare for all in general. I'm not supporting this particular motion. I think one of our residents actually emailed, and the best point I thought actually, which is, if you do already have insurance and you're running for city council, this is going to be meaningless if we have it. If we don't, and if we don't have it, it's also meaningless because you're not going to change your insurance. If a person doesn't have insurance and we do offer it, and we don't offer it, so they don't have it and we don't offer it, again, a wash. So the only situation in which this comes into play is if a person doesn't have insurance and we're offering it. And then I think we're coloring the motivation for running with healthcare. And it feels very odd to me to be doing that. So I guess I don't agree with that as being a motivator to run or a carrot to running. So I guess that's my discomfort with it. But I wish we didn't have to talk about healthcare as it relates to work. I just think it should be disconnected from that. But that is unfortunately the way it is. So.
Councilmember Kugler.
I wanted to share some of my comments about this topic. So I think, offering health insurance could help with the socioeconomic diversity on the council. I think the fact that so many of us do have health insurance and probably wouldn't use it is actually provides us with a good opportunity because we have the privilege of not worrying about it, right? Versus a council or majority who didn't have health insurance and were broaching this topic. It would, I don't think we would hit the minimum enrollment numbers, which is why I was curious. And I don't think that's good for anyone when there isn't consistency or certainty of having your benefits, And I do want to comment on this idea though, of that people would run for council to get benefits. There are way easier ways to get health benefits, like getting a part-time job at Starbucks, for example. So I just don't think that that's a huge motivator for people. That said, I do feel like a lot of residents have voiced concern. I agree with what Councilmember Marshall brought up, that we do need to be conscientious about our financial sustainability plan, and there are a lot of residents who are cost burdened. And so I think if we can keep costs down anywhere, this might be one of those places.
Councilmember File.
Thank you. As a person who brought this up in the council retreat, I appreciate that you put the work into this, Garrett, and so comprehensively and brought this back to us. I think it's interesting that almost half of the council manager form of governments do provide a healthcare benefit, and of the 11, 6 cities choose not to participate in the program. I'd rather be one of the 6, if not the 7th city who participates in adopting healthcare benefits for council and not participate. I think it says something more about our place of being a welcome and affirming council and making room for social diversity and social equity, let alone racial diversity of our council. So that being said, I'm hearing that there's not a lot of support for this, but this is my personal opinion that I probably won't participate in this. It's the idea that we could create and foster a better environment, knowing that outside of Kenmore, other cities are even starting to talk about childcare. There are just differences and barriers to participating in government where we are at today. So that being said, I'm going to close there and thank you for your time.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Councilmember Fowle for bringing this issue to the council. I appreciate what all my colleagues have said here too. I think it's ridiculous that we have to have this discussion at the city level. This is not a subject that people should have to be worried about. We should join the other, the rest of the industrialized nations and have this provided for folks. And the fact that we have to have this discussion is frankly disappointing. But after looking at the documents that Mr. Oppenheim put together and looking at the figures, I can't support that. I also frankly couldn't support us giving a benefit that would directly benefit us. I know that there's no statutory reason why we couldn't pass this and then benefit from it, but that wouldn't feel right to me either, especially right after an election, giving ourselves a benefit like that. But yeah, I appreciate Councilmember Fowle bringing this up. I'm not seeing support. Councilmember Fowle.
Given the discussion today, I think that we should move to table this to a later time, undetermined.
Yeah, I don't think we need to do anything. I think we can just let it go at this point, because there is no necessarily any motion that we have to make on this. So if we're not moving forward, that is. So I'm not seeing anybody making a motion to move forward with this. So I'm going to move on to the next business agenda item, dog park locations. Councilmember Fowle.
Yes, I did make a motion to table this discussion to later date and time, undetermined, unspecified. That is a motion that needs to be recognized.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion to table? Not seeing any discussion. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Shrubnik,
No.
Mayor Herbig,
No.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Kugler,
Oh, point of order. I think I need clarification on the motion. We're moving to table it, right?
Table
That's
to a
what
date
we're voting?
uncertain, which
It could be never, or eventually it might come back. Who knows whenever.
essentially it's a motion to kill the discussion, but also there was no need for this motion, so we could have just let it go and moved on, but we have a motion in front of us. So
Okay.
Councilmember
Yeah.
Kugler, Councilmember Fowle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
No.
The motion carries.
okay. Item B, business agenda, dog park locations and their suitability, presented by Parks Project Manager Rob Sayer McCord. Thank you, Mr. Oppenheim.
Mr. Sarah McCord and Debbie Bent are both on their way.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. And Anastasia, I need to be on the other, I need you to enable my other login so I can share my screen there. I apologize. There we go. Okay. Thank you for your patience. Sorry about this.
Mr. Rob, I think we really appreciate your assistant today.
This is his first city council meeting, and now I'm going to have to answer a lot of asphalt related questions. So he's learning. Okay. Well, and here he goes. Yep. All right. Thank you. So appreciate you bearing with me. There's been a growing call from the Kenmore community for our city to explore the possibility of adding a dog park for our residents. This is in keeping with the general trend towards establishing areas set aside for canine companions across the country. The Trust for Public Land estimates that the number of dog parks has grown 40% in the last decade, and the National Recreation and Parks Association shows that over half of all parks departments around the country count a designated dog park as part of their offerings. While Kenmore does not currently possess a dog park within city limits, there are several close by in neighboring communities, all within a 10-minute drive from the city, a generally accepted standard for accessibility. To the southwest, there's Shoreline's East Side Off-Leash Dog Area. To the northwest is Montlake Terrace's Off-Leash Dog Park. To the southeast, and most easily accessible to the majority of Kenmore residents, is Edith Moulton Off-Leash Dog Area, and additionally another 1.5 miles past Edith Moulton is Jasper's Dog Park. However, for the northeast quadrant of the city, there is a bit of a stretch before you can reach Tambark Dog Park, which is about 15 minutes away. So, with that in mind, before assessing what locations within the city might be best suited for a dog park, it's good to touch on what type of site would be a good fit. Unless you're trying to replicate Marymore, aiming for a dog park between 1/2 and 1 acre is pretty optimal. The area should be fenced in at 5 feet high and double gated with an airlock style system that allows for dogs and their owners to safely enter and exit in a controlled fashion and prevents accidental escapes. Locating this gate in the middle of a stretch of fencing is optimal to avoid conflicts arising from dogs feeling cornered. The surface of our dog park should be made up of a hardy material such as decompressed granite or a very sandy soil or some wood chips. But this region is really too rainy for a dirt base, which would quickly turn into a mud pit mixed with other less desirable aspects. And a grassy surface only lasts a few months before being destroyed, which I can give you some evidence here. So this is the Bothell Landing pop-up dog park. You can see in that left picture the grass that still exists outside the fence of the dog park. And this was about 2 minutes after they installed it. What had happened to the grass inside the dog park? It's pretty much all gone. Additionally, separating areas for small and large dogs, the cutoff usually being about 25 to 35 pounds is recommended. And this can prevent unfortunate encounters, as well as there's been sort of a national movement towards including Shire dogs of any size as permissible within the small dog area. It's recommended to provide running drinking water because stagnant bowls or pools can be disease vectors. And if possible, it's recommended to add or preserve shade for both dogs and owners. Replicating a natural setting has been shown to increase engagement for dogs as opposed to simply fencing in an open area. In doing so, however, it's also important to ensure that any remaining plants are non-toxic for dogs and that tree trunks are protected from caustic urine. Along these lines, it's critical to develop a pet waste management plan, whether this is allotting city park staff time for weekly sweeps, hiring an external service to perform those duties, or coordinating with a local user group. Simply stocking the park with mutt mitts generally doesn't cut it. And kind of again, along those lines, the most successful dog parks often rely heavily on a volunteer cadre for a range of maintenance and compliance tasks. Beyond those basics, there are several features that come highly recommended for both dog and user stimulation. Varied terrain, water features, climbing rocks or tunnels, a path through or around the park for both humans and their dogs, and then probably most importantly, substantial parking. A lot of conflicts arise because people underestimate what the capacity of a dog park is, and they tend to not have enough parking spots for it, which will cause a lot of complaint, which you, the council, will probably hear if we go that direction and don't have enough parking. There's also a standard set of rules that appear in various permutations at most dog parks around the country. Dog parks are for dogs and their owners. Owners are responsible for their dogs and their dog's waste, and all dogs must be ID'd and have had their shots. Aggressive dogs typically aren't permitted and must be at least 4 months old to join in the fun. Dogs must be supervised by their owners, as should any kids present under the age of 16. Dogs in heat aren't permitted, nor are food and beverages other than water, and all owners must keep their dog's leash with them at all times in case they need to leash their dogs. So, with all that to consider, is there a spot in Kenmore that would be a good fit for a dog park? The first option would be Linwood Park. It does have a patch of open space that would be small, but not necessarily unsuited for a dog park. It is located next to a playground, allowing for some families to bring kids and dogs to the park at the same time. However, there are some significant drawbacks. The open space is currently utilized by park goers for general recreational activities, and placing a dog park there would remove those opportunities. The existing grass would inevitably die, and the space isn't really large enough to permit area rotation that might allow for grass rest and recovery. But most importantly, Linwood Park is located in a residential neighborhood, like immediately next to folks' homes, and the noise and commotion produced by dog parks are unsuited for such a location. A second option is Twin Springs Park. Twin Springs offers a couple of major advantages. It's located in the area of the city furthest from an existing dog park in that northeast quadrant. It is still under development as it's being prepared to be open to the public later this year, and the master plan could be adjusted to incorporate a dog park. Additionally, it has an existing stretch of open space, roughly 3/4 of an acre, that's large enough to support a decently sized dog park. However, it too presents some major challenges. The meadow area is already being targeted for the development of a community garden, and while the two might be able to coexist next to each other, doing so would leave both areas with less than optimal room. Secondly, the meadow has some really serious drainage issues that the city is already aware of from previous assessment, and which would be extremely costly to address. Locating a dog park in this area could quickly result in a pretty mucky disaster. And additionally, there isn't enough parking, even though we're planning to add a second parking lot for the site, to properly support a dog park that is anything approaching really the space's capacity. And then again, most seriously, trying to place a dog park in this location would probably be an environmental nightmare given all the adjacent wetlands and the streams that crisscross the property. It would be an extremely lengthy and costly permitting process to make sure that we're clearing all the environmental hurdles that we'd need to put a dog park there. So lastly, the final option is Big Fin Hill Park. Like Twin Springs, it does contain a large open space, and like Linwood, it's adjacent to other recreational spaces, enabling some dynamic attraction. However, Big Fin Hill is, one, not a city, but a King County park, and two, is located just 2 miles from Edith Moulton off-leash area, calling into question whether an investment in this location really provides a significant return on investment for the Kenmore community. So besides the question of location, there are obviously some other construction and maintenance costs associated with the potential Kenmore dog park. I surveyed all of our surrounding communities and came away with a wealth of information on their budgets and experiences. It would appear that building a dog park of a size between Linwood and Big Fin Hill Park would cost roughly $100,000 to $200,000 in construction alone. The exact figure would depend on the location chosen and its associated challenges, as well as what features and materials the city opted for. And in Twin Springs' case, that number would more than double just addressing the drainage. Our neighbors with reliable volunteer bases managed to cut some of these costs by relying on things like Eagle Scout projects or volunteer work days, both during the construction as well as maintenance over the course of the year. However, even those cities with a robust volunteer corps spend at least 8 hours a month of city maintenance staff time on the dog park. Given that our city really just has one designated parks maintenance worker, as good a job as Quinn does, this would be a pretty big stretch to add to his duties. There are also some serious tangible maintenance costs associated with the parks, namely in replacing the surfacing, repairing or replacing fencing, and providing dog waste bags. So, in summation, I recognize that all of the information I've provided tonight kind of makes it seem like the prospect of a Kenmore dog park is pretty bleak. The city does have some serious challenges that we'd have to overcome if we wanted to pursue this. We do not possess an ideal site, and as with many of our park projects, there are numerous spatial and environmental barriers to implementation of certain types of recreation. However, if focusing on a dog park is something the city council chooses to continue to pursue, I do think there are some options. First, and at very little cost to us, we can help promote and raise awareness of the existing dog parks in our surrounding communities. Second, the city of Bothell has had substantial success in operating temporary pop-up dog parks. These parks exist seasonally and in varied locations, allowing for a temporary test of what amenities and locations are best received by the community. The expense of running these parks is substantially lower and allows for future budgetary adjustments while avoiding sunk costs. And then lastly, there's an opportunity to collaborate with the city of Bothell on a pop-up park that's located near to the border between our communities in that northeast section of Kenmore that's furthest from an existing park. While this wouldn't technically count as a dog park somewhere within our city limits, this could be an excellent test run for future Kenmore specific pop-up parks, or simply allow us to gather more data and guidance if we do want to choose towards moving towards establishing a permanent one. And I'm happy to answer any questions I can right now, or to circle back with more information if requested at a later date. Thank you.
Yeah, can we have the screen share taken down? Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Councilmember Shrevenick.
Yeah, first, Rob, I just had a quick question. Is there a way to put the full presentation on the website? There's a bunch of blank slides, and those are the ones that actually show those other dog parks. So that would be great if that's possible, or yeah. So that's one. And then the other is, you know, I kind of almost, I don't tend to like the pop-up dog parks. I think they're a little bit of a blight and they wreck the place and then they go away and people are pissed. But it did make me think, is there an opportunity in that part of Bothell anyway, not for a pop-up, but for a real dog park that might be just outside our city limits on that side, that we could partner with if we don't have, I really was kind of hoping, and I still feel like I'm pining for the Twin Springs location, because that is the area that's underserved. We have a park, it's in development. It just seems like the logical place. So I guess the question is there an opportunity in Bothell in that general location that you were thinking of, the pop-up piece?
Sure. So I've spoken with the recreation department. They are very interested in pursuing some collaboration opportunities. I am sort of waiting on, I guess, direction from tonight, whether or not that's something that council would like to see our department, which is, I guess, me, go ahead and pursue. And if so, then I can go and gather more information and report back on what opportunities might be there. And I guess I should check. I appreciate, I saw the heads up that you sent about the missing slides. Did slides not appear to your presentation view tonight as well?
We were able to see everything that you were showing, but on the presentation online, there's there's like 4 slides that just have missing images in them.
Okay. I'm not sure what went wrong in that upload, but I'm sure we'll get that ironed out and get the right one uploaded with everything. So thank you. I appreciate that.
That's great.
Yeah, if all else fails, I do like Big Thin Hill.
Councilmember File and then Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you. You know, I really appreciate all your hard work in putting this presentation together and gathering the information for us. I believe from participating in the past citizen input sessions on dog park for Kenmore and hearing from our community, they're asking for a dog park in Kenmore. And that being said, you know, I think with the amount of population we have, a dog park within a walkable vicinity would be most desired. That being said, I know that the Finn Hill location, you know, you can't just jump on a bus and get there, and you certainly could take a very long walk to get there, but that would be a nice in-between location county-wise, and that's, you know, something I could support. But ideally, I would like to see a dog park in the vicinity of Kenmore. And looking at some past cities' work, like Bothell did a pop-up. They did a style of pop-up. Kirkland did a rotating pop-up dog park with 3 different locations in the past. And eventually they worked with KDOG and an animal behaviorist to choose the site they did for the Jasper Dog Park, which is volunteer, majority cleaned up and fostered with environment. And it uses environmentally sound materials, shredded bark, shredded wood chips, for example, and it has running water. There's street parking. There isn't an absolute parking lot. But that being said, it's not very wet, and it is near a heron rookery, but well fenced off. I would rather see a dog park for Kenmore. And even if we had to maybe do a little bit more research to find a best location that wasn't, you know, impacting wetlands, I think that would be best. It sounds like the Twin Springs location would be a good location, yet it sounds very wet, and wet locations are indicative of environmental impactors that we probably don't want to be participating in. So that being said, gosh, I really want a dog park for Kenmore. and I would love to see us fulfill that dream of our community as a high demand item. I think we can get there. I think it's going to take a little bit more research and work. Meanwhile, we have an urban problem where we have the front grassy rain garden kind of area of City Hall being used as a doggy potty ground. Excuse the description, but it is next to a very large apartment complexes. So it'd be nice to be able to have a designated spot, and it'd be nice where our park's at, where people visit with their dogs, like Swamp Creek, to make sure that there's disposal on both the entrance and the exit. So there isn't a disposal on the exit on 68th, and we hear from community on that. So where we're at with dog parks, need to have proper disposal. Our parks need currently to have proper disposal where dogs do go to enjoy off-leash time and on-leash time with their owners, and hopefully we can come together in the future. So thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Marshall, then Councilmember Kugler.
I like the idea of collaboration with our neighbor to the east. Rob, were there a particular area or park that was being contemplated?
Not yet at this point, no, because I wanted to see what the direction was tonight, but I can come back with that information if the direction is to go ahead and talk with them and see what might come out of it. I'd be happy to report back on that.
Councilmember Kugler.
Thank you for your research on this. I know some residents were really hoping to have parks near them, like in Linwood or, within Kenmore. But at the same time, I think the Big Fin Hill Park idea is really interesting, and we should definitely explore that more, particularly because of some of the reasons you brought up, maintenance costs, maintenance staff. It's not ideal that it's not within our city, but people will drive for nice parks. I know people drive to Magnuson Park, they drive to Marymore, they drive to, Wayne Golf Course, which is like unofficial dog park, I think. So if it's nice and it has good services, and the fact that if it becomes a consistent location, I think people appreciate that. So I do like the idea of you working with our neighbors and exploring if there are any options there. If we could find something in Kenmore, that would certainly be my number one preference, but I think Big Fin Hill is very promising. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I think Big Fin Hill sounds very promising too. I really think that's a great location, and the way it's been presented, I think it would be wonderful if we can work with King County and our neighbor to make something happen there. And it is within, it's very near Kenmore, and people are already driving pretty far to get to dog parks at this time. So I think it would be an improvement. I also support, I'll share, I want to echo Councilmember Shrubnik's comments about dog parks. They tend to be not particularly pretty, especially the pop-ups. But I do support the exploration of a dog park pop-up with Bothell. I have a question, and I think it may be a little naive, and I'm not sure where why I feel like I should know the answer to this. Would there be any potential to explore a dog park in maybe some of the grassy areas at St. Edwards? I mean, I guess there might be environmental concerns and things like that, but it just seems like there may be space there. And actually, I have one more question. There is the sense, and it's related to the quality of space for dog parks. Where do the guidelines come for fencing and boundaries and the strict regulation, you know, the way that we have designed our dog parks? Because, you know, say just, you know, as many people do go to Wayne Golf Course, which is not an official dog park, but that space feels really good for the people and the dogs. It's not bordered off with the 5-foot fences and the gates, but it just looks like it works in a way. And I'm just wondering, what are there specific regulations that we are like bound to follow for a dog park? So the first question would be, would St. Ed's be a possibility? And I have a feeling it's not. The second would be, where do those fencing and rules come from related to the type of space that equals a dog park, off-leash dog park in particular?
Sure. I'm going to answer the second one first because I know more about that. So dog parks really started to catch steam in the mid-90s, and I think everyone was kind of taking their own approach for a while. And then as a lot of recreation goes, essentially the National Recreation and Parks Association got enough folks together and started establishing some guidelines and best practices. Similarly, the Trust for Public Land has their kind of standard template for what they recommend. You'll find there's one or two construction firms that specialize in dog parks. They also publish best practices and standards. So kind of all of those groups, but I would say the two major ones within recreation would be the Trust for Public Land and the National Recreation and Parks Association. As far as St. Ed's goes, I don't know so much about the space there or the difficulties in exploring it. I know we had been in discussion for some ball fields there that didn't come to fruition. That might be a question that Rob Carlinzi or Debbie Bent might be better equipped to answer. Sorry to put the two of you on the spot.
I think it's mostly a passive park and active recreation is discouraged, and I don't know where a dog park would land. My guess would be it would be active recreation and would be discouraged.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. And so, well, anyway, I think it's an interesting question, and it might not necessarily be that field that I was thinking of, but I just wanted to open the door to consideration. And so I think the way I interpret your answer, Rob, there's no binding legal, like state law about it. We determine what's going to meet the needs of our community and look out for what's best for public safety. And if there were to be any deviation from what those standards were, that would have to, we would have to be informed about that. So I just was curious. I really appreciate both of your responses. Thank you.
I want to thank you for the presentation also. This is something that I've definitely heard from a lot of folks. I think even though I'm a cat person, I think it's probably a need that we do need to be addressing, if not within the 6.5 square miles of Kenmore, close by with our neighbors. I was going to ask the same question about St. Edward's also, but I suspect after having been involved with the back and forth around everything last time around and the, not just the ball fields, but also just the lodge and everything, state parks takes a lot of time to work with. So that might not be a reality. I do like the idea of, partnering with Bothell if possible, or taking a look at Big Fin Hill. I'm not supportive of Twin Springs as a location personally, due to the makeup of the park, and we need to have, I think, deeper discussions around what we want there to be in the long term. Which actually brings me to a question that kind of popped up that's not directly related to this, but you mentioned a community garden at Twin Springs. It's the first time hearing about that. Can you elaborate a little bit of where that came from?
Sure.
Is that part of the interim plan, or?
That's part of the phase one. Well,
okay.
Prepping for the space for a future community garden is part of the phase one opening. I think the goal is to establish a community garden in that meadow area in a subsequent phase and partnering with a local group to provide that community garden. So I don't think that's something the city is, as of right now, if I'm understanding the direction correctly, the city is going to be constructing or financing. We'd be providing the space for a separate group to partner with us to put a community garden in that location.
Okay, I'll have to go review what we approved for the interim because I don't remember that being part of that, but that's fine. I still think, and this is just having been there a few times, I still think Linwood is worth considering. It's underutilized. It's fairly empty. It's what, 3 acres or so, or an acre and a half, I can't remember. It's large, and I've only been there a couple of times. Every time I've been there, it's been empty. It's been me and my kid at most, and it really feels like there's potential in that space that we're just not getting at. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's used by a lot of folks, and I just have not seen anybody else there. That's a total possibility also. But other than that, I can't think of any of our parks that would really translate well directly over for a dog park, just based on open land that has nothing else kind of going on with it. I thought for a second about North Shore Summit, but that doesn't work. Anyway, I would appreciate if we kept looking around and even partnering with our cities and with the county to find something that will work for folks. Even if we're working with Bothell and maybe they do want to make something at Wayne, if there's a way for us to partner with them on that, that's great. Because I don't think that we have to limit ourselves to the 6.5 square miles of Kenmore. I think that's awfully limiting. And I think, we need to be thinking regionally with a lot of these things anyway. Councilmember Fowle, did you have your hand up? Okay, Councilmember Shrubnik.
Yeah, thanks. I actually have a hypothesis about Linwood Park, and that is twofold. One is what the neighbors say, which is it's difficult to get there, and that relates to the ped bike safety issues. And the second is it is very enclosed feeling. And I actually think we could maybe at some point have somebody take a look at that and kind of give us some recommendations about what would make it more inviting. It is a little odd, and I think that's a little bit potentially off-putting as well. But going back to Twin Springs and Mayor Herbig's comment, I thought maybe I was the only one that didn't remember the community garden. It sounds like I have no recollection of that. So it would be, I'm seeing other people nod their head. So maybe we just need a refresher on that plan or something. Thanks.
Thank you. So there's been a lot of questions this evening, so I want to make sure that the direction that staff is going to pursue is clear, because what I've heard anyway is there was a lot of ideas, continue to pursue in Kenmore, continue to pursue partnerships, every idea that somebody mentioned it. But what I did hear most was exploring partnerships either at a Big Fin Hill or with Bothell. I think I heard probably at least 4 council members speak to that. So I am going to take that as a direction that is going to be the priority for moving forward with the dog park. I think we've pointed out that finding a site in Kenmore is limited. I think we can probably all agree on that. In terms of the other questions that you had on Twin Springs, perhaps we can schedule a staff report at a future meeting on Twin Springs. And what was the other question? There was something else, which is just completely, oh, I know. It was Councilmember Shrubnik's comment on Linwood Park. In the pros plan, there is a future project identified for looking at Linwood Park. It would probably be along the similar lines of North Shore Summit Park, which, as you remember, was just an open space and now is a great community asset. That, of course, will need funding. So again, it's not in the current 6-year CIP. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and I want to, Ms. Bent, thank you for your summary that you just gave. And I just wanted to say, when Mayor Herbig brought up Linwood Park, to me, that space as it is right now, despite the proximity, I think it, as a off-leash dog park, may really meet our community needs, like what's wanted. the way it is today. I like the idea of expanding it and building it into something more than just open space. But I would support if there are others keeping that on our consideration list, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Staff, do you have what you feel that you need?
I do, yes, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. And just make sure that you update the slides online for the public. Thank you. Next up is staff report, Kenmore Cares update presented by Assistant City Manager, ARPA Administrator Stephanie Lukash.
Mayor Herbig, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, it's great to be with you tonight. I had promised to come back last week with an update on the Kenmore Cares program. The program ends in 10 days on March 31st. And as of today, the program team let me know we have $20,500 remaining as of today. However, there's $30,500 either in process or under review. So not necessarily guaranteed. Not all applications that come in are people who are eligible. So we're thinking that, if all of them that are in today, for example, were approved, we'd be 10,000 over. We think it's probably more like 8,000 over once we're going through the eligibility process. So with 10 more days left in the program, we're estimating a rough estimate, maybe 24 to 30,000 that we will be over in the program at the end. So I'm here to give that brief update, see if you have any questions, and just seek your approval to proceed as we've been doing, and come back again next week with another update.
Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. Oh, Councilmember Kugler.
Thank you, Ms. Lukash, for that update. When you give us the update at the next meeting, would it be possible to get an update on the business grants as well?
Absolutely. We will be happy to do that.
Thank you.
You can count on it. Sure.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Is there anything else for staff report?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilmember reports and comments. I'm going to go in the order of how I see people. So Councilmember Shrevenick.
Sorry, nothing to add.
Councilmember Marshall.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Councilmember Kugler.
I have one question for staff, and that is, we had talked about having a meeting with Cascadia Law Group and residents, and I'm wondering if staff might be able to give us an update on when we anticipate having that.
We don't have a date yet, but we are working on it.
Councilmember File.
Yes, thank you. Today we adopted our significant tree ordinance. I know that we're expecting to see an extraordinary tree ordinance in the future and something on tree mitigation. I'm wondering from staff, when might we expect to see that?
I'd have to look at the agenda forecast. I don't recall off the top of my head, but the exceptional tree ordinance, we've got a meeting, I believe tomorrow or sometime this week, to work out some issues among staff, and then we'd have to then have it approved by Commerce and do SEPA, which takes a few weeks. So probably the soonest would probably be sometime in May for the exceptional tree ordinance. And then I think there were a couple other tree issues that we need your guidance on before we move forward. And I can't remember when that's scheduled, but it's probably on the horizon.
It might be nice to have some environmental group feedback on those issues before it comes back to us. I think it'd be nice to have that preceded conversation, at least part of the considerations before we go to, possible example policies, in my personal opinion. And then, I've been invited to speak as part of a panel next week on affordable housing and what we're doing here with rental protections. And that's about it.
Deputy Mayor.
Well, I just wanted to share that on the 31st of this month is the first King County Flood Advisory Board Committee meeting. And just draw attention to it. I plan on speaking up for a restoration of Sammamish River Slough, especially work around North Lake Washington. So I just wanted to call to attention that that's coming up and what I plan on speaking up for. But if anyone has anything to share with me or ideas, my door is open because it's such important work and it's time to get funds and projects going at the north end of Lake Washington. I had one other thing. I really appreciated the robust conversation around the health care issue that was before us today. It's important that we talked about it, and it's important that we were able to hear from community members. And it was also, I wanted to call attention to something I thought the council member file said that was important and meaningful. And it was probably my most challenging part on the vote, which was why not have the door open, right? Like, why not be among those councils? That was my area of concern, because I knew no one would take it. I mean, it's really just about opening the door and the opportunity. And anyway, I just want to say, I want to call attention to that. And a big part of my discomfort with even voting for that was the system is so broken. And that's really it. And I just want to say it was a great conversation. Healthcare for all should be a right. And so I'll leave there. I didn't say it earlier, and I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
And I wanted to bring up one quick thing for discussion. So during legislative session, there was a bill, House Bill 1099, which the title is Improving the State's Climate Response Through Updates to the State's Comprehensive Planning Framework. It made it just right to the end. It passed both the House, the Senate. All it needed was concurrence because there was an amendment between the two chambers, and I wasn't able to get concurred in the House before they closed up session. But there's a lot of good in that bill, and there's nothing stopping us from taking the steps to there's nothing stopping us from making our comp plan stronger by folding climate. And I know that I've spoken with Ms. Bent about this very briefly. I know there's nothing stopping us from putting in climate resiliency and environmental resiliency into our comp plan. I would love us to have a more in-depth discussion around what that means and the possibility of doing that in our comp plan in the future. And I'm curious if there's anybody else who is interested in having that discussion at a later date. I'm seeing 4 or 5. So, Mr. City Manager, could we have that added to a future agenda for what it would mean to add House Bill 1099 requirements to our comp plan as we update our comp plan?
You bet.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And if there's nothing more to come before us, the Kenmore City Council is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.